Hello and welcome to the webinar, Goal Setting for Sustained Success. I'm going to share the screen now. We've actually worked out the technical difficulties. So thank you for attending. This is what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at what you actually want and then look at the benefits of goal setting to achieve what you actually want. Part of that is the psychology of success. In order to achieve what you want, it's having the right beliefs behind what you're trying to do. And then we'll think about the power of visualization, because part of thinking about what you want is the visualization exercise. And we've got a cute exercise for you to try in a minute. We're going to go through goal setting and motivation, and then the GOST framework, which is goals, objectives, strategy, tactics, and we've tacked on tasks because it's a comprehensive framework, but within that sits the SMART framework. And then we're going to talk about prioritizing those goals, because once you've got your set of goals, you need to prioritize them to know which ones you want to work on first. And then we'll look at some action planning software tools, because sometimes it's easier if you've got them in a tool to see them all at once, so that you can work through them and work through them in a timely fashion. You know what's coming up and what actually needs to be done. And we'll also look at overcoming obstacles. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to understand the importance of a growth mindset, because your growth mindset will really help you in achieving that sustained success that we talk about first. As I said, we'll distinguish between the GOST framework and every aspect of the GOST framework, because a lot of people get mixed up between objectives, strategies, tactics, and goals, and they're sometimes used interchangeably. So we'll go through this GOST framework, which is a standard framework, and then we'll go through the SMART goals, but with regard to personal and professional goals. We'll then develop actionable strategies and tactics to achieve those goals, and how you can monitor your progress so that you can adjust your plans accordingly so that you achieve your goals. This is a famous quote by Henry Ford, and it relates back to the mindset again. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, then you're absolutely right. If you think you can do something, if you remember when you were a child and you wanted to do something, if you stayed trying to achieve that goal, you would actually achieve it because you thought you could. A lot of us, when we get older, we move that and find that it doesn't actually work any longer, and we get caught up in the fact that we can't do something. Imposter syndrome sets in, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. I don't know whether you had a chance to complete the Wheel of Life questionnaire, but you can take a picture of the QR code today from the screen. What that looks at is you can look at 10 different parameters, and you can use the ones that are already there, or you can customize to your own parameters. And this, you can look at them both personally and professional goals. So what do you really want? What do you want in your personal life? And what do you want in your professional life? And if you've done the Wheel of Life questionnaire, you can always reach out to me and we can talk it through. What you'll see is the diagram is where areas of your life that you might want to work on. There'll be areas where you're at a 10 or very close to a 10 that you're not so worried about working on, but there'll be areas where you will want to work on them. And that's when goal setting really comes into play. With goal setting, you can really get clarity on direction. Where am I going? What do I want to achieve? And it improves your decision making. It also improves your productivity, both at home and in the work situation. Because if you are very clear on where you're going, you don't get distracted by other things that are coming through and getting in the way potentially. There is actually a science. I'm a scientist, and there's a science behind goal setting. The Harvard business study, it was actually, I think it was 1957, but it still stands today, and a lot of people have written the same thing post that. This is the science backup of goal setting. Only 14%, they looked at a specific group, and only 14% of people actually set goals for themselves. But out of that 14%, they are 10 times more likely to achieve a level of success than people who don't set goals. And again, out of that 14%, only 3% took the time to write them down. But that 3% were 3 times more likely to be successful than those that didn't write the goals down. That's important because once you're writing them down, you're actually getting very clear and very granular on what you want. You're also putting it out into the universe. And there's a thing at the back of your brain called the reticular activating system. And what you're doing is basically telling that part of your brain, that's what I want. These are my goals and this is what I'm trying to achieve. And it will start putting things in front of you, a bit like a Google search on what you actually want. So it will start showing you the way of how to actually achieve your goals. There is a downside, of course. If you don't set the goals, you could have a lack of direction. You could be just going off at different tangents in different ways, and you could be getting lost. If you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? I think there's a famous Alice in Wonderland quote about that. You could be going anywhere if you don't know where you're actually going. And so it's really important to make sure you know what you want and you know how to get there. And also that any goals you have in business relate back to the company vision and mission within what the company have actually set. There's a Forbes study that I mentioned, which they talk about making the goals visible. Now, that again is back to the reticular activating system. Once you put it out into the universe, it actually says, okay, that's what I want. I'm going to help you get there. They also talk about how to feel them. And by that, they mean visualize it. Close your eyes and see your goals behind your eyes and feel them, hear them, smell them, touch them, so that you can actually visualize actually having those goals achieved. And then understanding them is the why. Why are you trying to achieve these specific goals? And of course, you've got to take action. You've got to take action on these goals. And then we talked about sharing them so that when you share them, they become more real to you rather than just being a thought in your head. If you've written them down and you share them, then they become more real. There is as I mentioned earlier, a psychology of success. This is the belief feedback loop. Your subconscious beliefs are what give you power. They give your thoughts power. If you believe something is true, it will go into your conscious thoughts in the way you talk about things and the way you see things. So if you're a negative person or you've had a negative reaction to something, your thoughts and words are going to be very negative. You're going to be complaining, and then the feelings that emote from that are going to be, you're not going to be feeling quite so good. With that, once you have those poor feelings, the actions are going to mimic the emotions, and it's not going to, you're maybe not going to take action because you're not feeling so good. That's sometimes called procrastination, because something's happened and you don't want to do anything more, and that will dictate the results. On the converse side, though, if you're a very positive person and you think you know you can, or you know you can, your subconscious belief will translate then into what thoughts you use. I can do this, I've got this, I get to do this, I want to do this. And that pulls up your feelings and emotions. It pulls up the oxytocin in your body and makes you feel higher and more happy. And your actions resulting from that will then be more positive, and subsequently the results that would come from that will be more positive. So it really is about your subconscious belief. What do I believe? And in another workshop, we talk about how you can change those subconscious beliefs. But it's important when you're goal setting, when you're writing out your goals, do you believe that you can actually achieve them? And we'll talk about some techniques to actually make sure you can believe them later on. So I'd like you to think about what you actually want in the next week, month, or year, and why. So I'll give you a few minutes to think about maybe one goal. What do you want the next week, next month, next year, and why do you want it? The why is important. If you remember the why from before with the Harvard Business Study, It's why you want it, because that will make it more real to you, because it's your belief. I want this because it's going to help me achieve X. So take a few minutes to think of at least one goal that you have, personal or professional. And then we'll talk about the power of visualization further. Okay, I've got a test for you, an exercise for you. If you take up your arm and you point it at the camera, and then you take it as far back as you can and see how far back you can get. Then bring your arm back and point it back at the camera. Notice how far you could get back. Then take your arm down and imagine, close your eyes and imagine you're taking your arm back, but taking it further than you just did. Bring your arm back in your mind's eye, put it down, and then imagine again, picking your arm up, moving it back behind you and moving it even further, and really imagine how far you can get. And then bring your arm back and put it down. This sounds really weird, but now pick your arm up physically, point it at the camera, and see how far you can get back further than you actually did the first time. And that's because you've imagined it. So your brain is telling you that you can get further back and that you can achieve what you wanted to achieve. And that's the power of visualization. You can do this in different ways. So one of the clients that I have is an 11-year-old boy who wants to be an MLB player. And I ask him to visualize when he's standing on the mound, and he had a problem with his back foot coming up before he was ready to pitch. So I had him visualize standing on the mound and his foot clearly seated on the floor until he was actually ready to pitch. And it stopped him from doing it, because every time he visualized it, his foot was stuck to the ground. And so now he doesn't get disqualified or get into trouble for picking up his foot too early and not following through. The same with his hitting rate and his batting average. Everything's gone up because I've asked him to visualize these things happening time and time again, so that he can actually see them in his mind's eye and visualize them happening. And that's how you can visualize your goals actually happening. If you ever remember Roger Bannister and the 4-minute mile, nobody knew that the 4-minute mile could be done, but Roger Bannister believed it, and he used to imagine it every day that he was going to beat that record. People thought it was untrue, it wasn't going to be achieved, but once he'd done it, everybody's mind said, oh, it is possible then. So then other people started achieving the 4-minute mile. So these are just examples of how you can visualize in your day. I'm sure if you've been going for a promotion, you've visualized actually having that promotion and what you would say in the interview and what you would say to the person and how you would run your department or how you would run the team. And that's visualizing. And then you notice when you actually get to that job, you do exactly what you visualized. Maybe a slight variation on it, but you can visualize what you actually want to achieve and then start putting it into place. There are two types of mindset. There's the fixed mindset where you really kind of avoid changes and your thoughts are very much, it's too hard, I shouldn't have to do this. And sometimes you might ignore feedback and in some cases be threatened by the success of others. That's going to hold you back. But if you can put yourself into a growth mindset, which is embracing challenges, the law of polarity says that for every problem, there's a solution. It's the opposites, that for every problem, there is a solution. So if you can embrace challenges and train your brain, you'll actually help to work towards a growth mindset and towards mastery. And of course, everybody needs feedback. Sometimes we don't know we've done or said something. And if you can get feedback and be inspired by others, that's where you grow. And a lot of the successful people have a real growth mindset. And Tony Robbins says 80% of success is mindset. So do a lot of other people. If you can get your mindset into a growth mindset and really think about what you're trying to achieve and where you want to go, that will be really helpful and help you succeed. And the topic of this is succeeding for sustained growth. We've talked a little bit about mindset, but you've really got to be motivated. Once you've set your clear goals, you've got to stay motivated. And how I would suggest you do this is every morning write your goals out, because it gets you into the frame of mind for the first thing in the morning. Whether you're at work or whether you're at home, if you're working from home, write out your goals and then write them out again. If you're feeling that you're flagging or that your motivation's down, you can rewrite them out. And then also at the end of the night. Now, some people do it 3 times a day, some people do it 2 times a day, but at least once a day, write out your goals. It focuses your mind. It also helps your reticular activating system say, oh yes, that's what I want to do. I'm going to do everything in my power to achieve that now. And of course, once we go through the GHOST framework and get more granularity, the mind will know exactly what you need to do. And so you don't end up drifting, reading social media or watching TV or any of those other activities that are not going to serve you and help you achieve your goals. Everything you do should be helping you achieve your goals. If you find yourself at the end of the day or you're flagging for any reason, a tool I often use is just one more thing. So I sit at my desk, and if my mind's saying, oh, I've had enough now, I'm tired, I want to go work out, or I want to go and sit down, whatever it's saying to me, I actually then say back to it, just one more thing, and then we'll go and do something. You do one more thing, and then you realize that you keep saying, I'll just do one more thing, I'll just do one more thing. And then you've done another 5 things towards your goals. Whether it's towards your work goals or your personal goals, you've just done one more thing towards it. Okay, please feel free to put any questions in the question box. I'm sort of sharing screen, so if you see me looking backwards and forwards, that's why. It's because the questions are on one screen and I'm looking at the other screen. Let's talk about the GHOST framework. This is a renowned framework, and it shows you here the goals, objectives, strategies, tactics, and tasks. We call them key activities in our software, but you can see that the goals are really about the desired results. What are the outcomes that you actually want? They're qualitative, they're long-term, they're overall direction. So if you think back when I asked you to set out one of your goals might be a revenue goal. One of your goals might be your next promotion. It might be that you want to renovate your house, or any of these other goals that could be personal or professional. From that, you look at the objective. So what needs to happen? And this is where SMART comes in. What do I need to do that's very specific? It's measurable, it's attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Now, attainable and realistic, last time I got this question, attainable is something that you actually can achieve, but realistic is that actually achieved? So the 4-minute mile is attainable, but is it realistic for me to achieve the 4-minute mile? Probably not. So you have to look at what's attainable and what actually is realistic for you or realistic for what you're trying to do. So then we've got down to strategies. How do we achieve our objectives? This is starting to get into the how. We need a plan of action. We need the focus, which is where we write our goals out 3 times a day. We need the drive. We need differentiation. How are we going to achieve our objective, or objectives, should I say? What strategies are we going to employ? And then the tactics. A lot of people go direct to tactics. We can do this, we can do that, we can do the other, but they haven't mapped it actually back to a goal. If you've just got a tactic, you need to map it back to a goal, because you don't know why you're doing something. And you could be wasting time, wasting resources, wasting money, because you're doing something that actually isn't going to help you achieve your goals. So the tactics really are the how. They're shorter term actions, and they're detailed action, and they're sort of a tangible list. This is where you get into the nitty-gritty of what am I going to do? And then the tasks. what needs to happen. So it gets further down into the specific detailed steps towards implementing. And I'll show you some examples in a minute. But we talked about SMART objectives. I'll just leave this up for a minute. Remember, goals lead to objectives, lead to strategies, lead to tactics, lead to tasks. In order to achieve your goals, you need to know what the objectives are, and they need to be SMART. You need to know what your strategies you're going to employ. That then leads to, within those strategies, what are the tactics? And further down from that, what are the tasks? You've heard of SMART goals before, and as I say, some people use these interchangeably. A SMART goal is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Pearson's law says that when performance is measured, excuse me, performance improves. But when performance is measured and reported back, the performance improves exponentially. This is why you have KPIs in corporate, because they want to measure what's actually happening and to show that it's improving. How do you know that you're improving on something if you're not reporting it and not measuring it? And that's the same for, like I say, this little boy that I'm coaching to be an MLB player. We go over his goals every single week, and we go over his achievements, what he's achieved, and he can see a running total of what he's actually achieving as we go along. His hit rate, his pitch rate, what he's achieving. And that's not just his only goal, by the way. He's got 4 other goals that we work on every single week to see where he's getting to with those goals. And what it does is it keeps him straight. One of the other people I work with, apart from corporate people, is academics, because academics often don't know how to use the goals and the SMART framework, so they don't measure things, they just do things. They sometimes can be very tactical, just because they haven't been exposed to doing goal setting. Like in corporate, we do goal setting all the time. So really setting up the goals and working through the SMART framework will help them gain some structure so that they can work out what they're actually doing and how well they're doing. This is where it falls in the SMART. As I said, it falls in with the objectives. And this is just another way of showing it. The goals and the objectives are the what. SMART comes into it, and then you start really working on the how. Has anybody got any questions or any comments? I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Nick, I'm sure you'll let me know if there are any. Let's dig into these a little bit deeper then. So the goals, what are you trying to achieve? It's the big picture. So let's example is launch X product to market. We launch products for pharmaceutical and medical devices companies, or help them launch their products. So the big goal, one of the big goals, is launch this product into a specific market. And then the objective is what needs to happen in order to achieve that goal. Is it specific? Is it SMART goal? So in this case, it would be engage 5 companies to trial the product by the end of 2024, if they've already got approval, of course, if you're in our industry. And then the strategies are really the methods, the approach, the capabilities that you put in place in order to achieve that objective. So again, an example is identify 5 and target 5 specific companies once you've worked out the criteria that you're going to target. And that starts bringing it further down. And I'll show you it all together later on. The tactic, then we really start getting into the nitty-gritty of how we're going to do this. These are specific activities taken to implement the strategy. So in this instance, it might be multiple pitch competitions to gain visibility about your product. It might be attend various conferences and put exhibit booths up so that you can talk to as many people as possible. That's just one activity. And once you get into the tactics, there can be hundreds of lines, depending on what business you're in and what your goals are all about. Then we get down to the key activity or the task. This really is really detailed. What do we need to do? So in this case, it would be enter a specific pitch competition or go to a specific conference. In the case of the lady who is an associate professor at the university, one of the things we've got down to in her key activities is which conferences she's going to present at, so that she knows how many and how far apart they are, but she knows why she's doing each congress, so that when she gets asked to present at A conference versus B conference, right, does that B conference or A conference map back to her goals? If it's just for interest's sake and they're at the same time, she's going to go for the one that actually maps back to her goals. And that's how focused it can get you, so that you're not going off at a tangent and doing things that really aren't helpful for you or your team. So this is pulling it all together. The goals are the qualitative, the objectives are the quantitative, strategy is long-term, the how, then the tactics are the how, and the key activities are the shorter-term actions. Again, if there are any questions, please let me know, and I'll answer any questions as we go along. But we're going to go to a poll in a minute. Nick, are you there for the poll? I see you. Yeah, okay. Awesome. I see you've just clicked back on. Okay. Just let this sink in for a minute. The goals, the objectives, the strategy, tactics, and key activities. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me afterwards. I'll send out the recording from this, or a link to the recording, so that you can answer any question, ask any questions. And just think about, when you're goal setting, going through this hierarchy. Okay, let's get to the poll. Nick, are you ready to put the poll up?
I don't see it on my side. I think I need to be a co-host.
Okay, I can put it up then. Sorry about this. I thought you had poll. Right, here we go. So, how many goals is it preferable to have? Answer 3, 5, 6, 8, or 9. And please feel free to vote now which one you think is the most, is the general amount of goals that you would have. And there is a reason for asking this, obviously. So please feel free to vote. I can't vote. So if anybody else is going to vote. Okay. They're all shy. That's fine. I'll tell you the answer then. I will get rid of that. I'll tell you the answer. The answer is, let me just unhide that slide, is 5. Because, whoops, because if you have more than 5, can you see my screen, Nick? I'll put it back on.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, put it back onto share. The answer is 5. Because if you have more than 5, it's difficult to make sure you achieve them. Remember, under all of these are the objective, strategy, tactics, tasks. And if you have too many, you'll just get overwhelmed and won't be able to achieve them. Now, the goals can be big bucket goals, and then you can get granular on as you go down the GOST framework. But it really is ideal to have 5 goals as a maximum. 3 and 5 are something our brains can deal with better than numbers 3 and 5. So you can have either 3 or you can have 5. And that can include personal and professional goals. Or if you're just talking about work, it can be just your professional goals. It's important, once you've got your goals, to prioritize. Out of the 5 goals, which ones are important and urgent at the same time? Those are the ones you do first on the left-hand top quadrant. They're urgent and they're important. So I need to get this done within the next 6 months. That becomes urgent. The ones that can that need to be get done in the next 12 months are not so urgent, but they may be important. So they would fit in the bottom. They're not urgent, but they're important. And you might be able to delegate that. So the ones that really are urgent but not important, you can do later. And of course, those that are not urgent or not important, it says don't do, but that's the Eisenhower matrix. But you could always leave them for later. It depends. They may come up in importance depending on what is actually happening. So for every goal you have, if you've written down your 5 goals, assess them on whether they're important or urgent. And the reason we do goals is because by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And this is by Benjamin Franklin again. And so it really is about making sure you're planned out. What are you going to do and how are you going to do it? Just as an architect will build the drawing of the house and then he'll build it in stages. The reason he does that is because it's all very clear then what the order is, how the plan looks, and what he needs to do, because from the architect plans, the builders then know what they need to do in terms of the actual tactics, what's the materials they need to buy, what they need to do in what order, because they'll be able to see it from the architect plans. And that's the same with goal setting. I would suggest you use some sort of planning tool when you're developing your goals. You can use Excel. We've worked with clients who've had huge Excel sheets, and sometimes, unfortunately, they can kind of get a bit disjointed and fall over. But there's Excel, there's Microsoft Project, although a lot of people don't like it. There's ClickUp, there's AHA, there's Cascade, and we have a tool called Lily Launch Tools, and you can see it in the diagram just to the right. What this does is it actually helps you plan your GOST all the way down to your tactics so that everything's all in one place. But you can use any of these tools and you can look at them across weeks, months, or years. But it's essential that you have something to plan, to put into your to put your plan into, so that you can see it visually, and then you can refer back to it, what else you need to do and when you need to do it. In order to achieve your goals, we've already talked about visualizing. We've also talked about writing down your goals every day, at the beginning or at the end of the day, or both. So if you can write down your goals at the end of every day and really think about, what am I trying to achieve? What do I want and why do I want it? And what is the one thing I can do today? So if you write down your goals first thing in the morning, sometimes then it might lead to a to-do list, but you could also start with, what's the one thing I can do to bring me closer to my goals? So that might be making that phone call. It might be sending that important email. It might be writing that report. It can be, setting up a webinar. It can be setting up a meeting for your team. What is that one thing I can do today to bring me close to my goals? And then keep referring back to your goals, because they'll keep you on the straight and narrow and hopefully help you be blinkered. I'm focused on this. I'm not going to be distracted by all of these other things. We've already talked about this, about the goal setting and the science behind it. If you set your goals and then you write them out, you're more than 10 times likely to achieve them. If you then put them out into the universe, you've got much more chance of them actually being achieved. And this is why every morning I write out my goals. What am I trying to achieve? What do I need to achieve? And also the thing we do with our clients. Whenever we have a coaching session with clients, or even in the consulting that we do, it's always about their goals. Are they clear on their goals? Where are they going? And what are we doing to help them achieve their goals? Because that's the ultimate end result, achieving the results for the client. In order to overcome obstacles, you can identify and acknowledge. So if something's coming into your head when you're doing your goals, think about it and just say, okay, I've got you, I've clocked you. Check your mindset and say, right, don't let that derail me. I've understood that you're trying to derail me, but I'm going to focus back down onto my goals and then really look at your plan and help develop and refine the plan. Sometimes accountability it helps a lot, because back to Pearson's law, when performance is measured, performance improves, and when performance is measured and recorded back, the rate of improvement accelerates. And that's where I come in with some of my clients in accountability. We go through their goals. What have they achieved? How far have they got? Because just being accountable for where we are, and that's whether we're talking pharmaceutical medical devices, or we're talking an 11-year-old boy, or we're talking an associate professor or an entrepreneur. If they're accountable for what they're achieving through their goals, then that makes it easier for them to see how far they've come. You can see how far you're progressing yourself. So you're only comparing against yourself, what I did yesterday and what I'm doing today, so that you don't start comparing yourself with other people. I achieved this yesterday towards my goals. I'm going to achieve this today, and I'm going to achieve that tomorrow. And then you can start seeing how much you're achieving. And once you do that, momentum takes over. The more you achieve, the more momentum takes over, and you continue to achieve. And that's why celebrating wins is really important. When you celebrate wins, you acknowledge that you've achieved something, and it gives you that oxytocin buzz. I've achieved something. I've done well. You talk nicely to yourself, and that's important too. And then you start achieving more things. Sometimes we do something and it just slides into the next meeting, or we slide into the next whatever we're trying to do. And it's important to celebrate those wins. That's what we've covered. What did you want? The benefits of goal setting. We looked at the psychology and how it interplays with trying to achieve your goals. We looked at visualization and how you can visualize what you want to achieve. And then the whole goal setting and motivation. If you find you're draining throughout the day, just go back to your goals and really think about what you want to achieve, and keep that blinkered view on. We talked about the GOST framework and how the SMART framework fits into it. We've also talked about prioritizing those goals and how prioritization can make a difference, so that you're doing the most important things first. We talked about some software tools. As I say, we have a software tool that pulls in all your GOST right down to the tactics if you wanted more information, but there are plenty of tools out there. We talked also about overcoming obstacles. If you would like more information, please feel free to scan the QR code and set up a 15-minute call. Or as I say, when we send out the recording, you can come back to me with any questions. But for the moment, did anybody have any questions just now? I'll stop sharing and see if I can see the box. Did anybody have any questions? Quiet bunch today. Often the questions we get are about how, if you can get derailed with your goal setting. So if you don't achieve something, that can have an effect on you. So what you really have to do is just start writing back your goals again and see what you can do. There are sometimes there's a lot going on, either in your organization or outside your organization, and focus on the things that you can control. So if there are specific things that you can achieve, what's one thing I can achieve towards my goal today? And then, as I say, if you're sitting at your desk and something happens, how can I get my mindset back into my work? And that's by going through my goals again and sitting very carefully looking at the goals and what I want to achieve. Any other questions? No. Well, that concludes the webinar. As I say, if you want to have a if you want to talk to me afterwards, or you want to ask any questions, please feel free to scan the QR code or you can contact me at lynn@connectorstrategy.com, whichever is your preference. But thank you for attending. And if you have any feedback, that's always welcome. We'll possibly send out a feedback questionnaire so that people can provide their feedback. Is there something that you would have liked to have seen? Did it cover everything that you expected? And that's where we want to make sure we give you information that you can utilize as saying personal life or professional life, whichever works for you. So any more questions? Nope. Okay, I think that's a probably a good place to end. You get a whole 7 minutes back from your day. Thank you for attending the webinar. We really appreciate it. We hope you found it valuable, and please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or any feedback or anything that you liked in the program that you would like to see more of. We're happy to help. Okay, Nick, unless you're seeing any questions that I'm not, I'm going to close this down, and thank you very much for your attendance. Okay. Thanks.
All right.
Have a great day.